Hey guys, how y'all doing today? My name's Derrick, and this is Grain Free Homestead. Today we're going to be talking about weed barriers. I know for years a lot of people have used different kinds of things, different methods. We'll be talking a few different ways that you can use weed barriers to help keep the weeds out of your garden. You don't have to deal with weeds nearly as much. All right, so here we go. All right guys, I've tilled my garden a few weeks ago. I usually keep some kind of fabric or something over it, and we tilled it up. We've had some rain, so it's kind of muddy now. So this is going to be an area that I cover up with some kind of weed barrier, and I highly recommend that in most types of gardens that you put something down. All right, you can see I got all this mulch here, or yeah, pretty much mulch. I got all this taken care of here with pine needles. It's all covered over pretty good, just to keep the weeds down. It won't work for a real long time, but it will definitely help. So this is one way to use a weed barrier, is just like a mulch or a pine needles. So another option you can use, and this is going to be something you have to be a little bit careful with, and the same with pine needles, but wood chips. So I like to use wood chips as another weed barrier. You can see already, even though I put wood chips down last year, there's tons of weeds already starting. And if I don't do something about it, this is all gonna take over. So what I'll do is I got a neighbor who has a business that chops up trees, so he's got plenty of wood chips to give away. He's going to be bringing me a load of wood chips in this whole area here around my coop, all the pathways in around my garden. I'm going to put wood chips down. Now you do not want to till the wood chips into the ground. If you do, the wood, as it starts to rot, will pull the nitrogen out of your soil and rob your plant. Now you can put it on top of the surface around the plants, but if you put this in your garden and then till it in, you're going to end up having some problems with your plants. So if you look here where our kids' playground, their swing set and stuff is, we use wood chips. These wood chips here, it's just to help keep the weeds down. You still get weeds here and there we got to go through, and I don't use a Roundup. I'll usually use a torch, but this is just a weed barrier. There's no tarps, there's no fabric, there's no nothing underneath this. This is just mounded up wood chips. And the soil does actually, after a few years of rotting, this stuff will turn into good compost. It'll be great to use to grow stuff. But you know, when it's chunks like this, it's just gonna, hey buddy, it's just gonna be not good for your garden. It's not gonna be good for your plants to be in the soil with them. As long as it's on top, it'll be fine. All right, so we've got wood chips, we got pine needles, and now we got something else that I think is probably one of the better options. I like it better than wood chips and pine needles, but it's just, you're gonna have to be a little bit more accurate on. I usually plant plants and then I cut holes in this and put this down afterwards. So what I'm talking about here is landscape fabric. So we got the weed fabric here, and this is mainly used for landscaping. This stuff lasts just a couple years, maybe 3 years. It's pretty thin. Water will penetrate through this, and it works really well. I use it around my tomatoes. Use it around almost all my plants that I plant in. Everything that I pretty much grow by seed and I plant in every year. I'll put this fabric down and then I'll cut holes in this and put the plants through it. And they usually do really well. It's just good protector. But the only problem with this stuff is it doesn't last as long. It's not as thick, but it is a whole lot more affordable. This stuff is not very expensive at all. You can get whole rolls of it. There's also like something I don't like using it's called weed paper. It's basically just cardboard. I mean, you could use that, you can get it for free, but to go and buy it just seems silly to me.
I'll post a picture. I saw some at Walmart, and it was like 15 bucks for, it's just basically sheets of paper that are.
All right, guys, here's the fourth weed barrier that we use. So we have, we use wood chips, pine needles, and we use landscape fabric. This is a lot more expensive. It's a whole lot nicer, works really well. Almost completely blocks out any sunlight that go through it. You can see here, it's woven fabric. I don't know if you can see, it's a whole lot thicker stuff. Totally blocks out any weeds. And the reason why I don't use only this is just because of the price of it. It's a whole lot more expensive to use. So I got some of this. You can see here, I've already put some onions in the ground. We burn holes in this and put our onion sets in there. We did this last year. It worked really well. We had more onions than we had ever done before, and this year we've probably doubled the amount of space for onions because we like doing this so much. In the past, we tried to grow onions without any weed barrier or with like something like straw, and it did not work very well. We got to where you couldn't even see the onions anymore because the weeds got so bad. So if you've never gardened before, or if you're newer to gardening or newer to not using a weed barrier, I definitely would recommend doing some form of weed barrier. It's gonna make it so much easier for you. You're gonna enjoy your garden a whole lot more because you're not gonna be picking weeds all the time. Now there's other ways to do it. There's different methods of, there's like composting things and the wood chips and there are people who do not till. It's whatever works for you. I'm not judging anybody. You do what does best for you and your methods. If that's a way that you already do it, I'm just showing a few ways that I hope will be helpful for you guys or people who are new to gardening, is to try and experiment with different methods, different practices. Try some different stuff that you've never tried before to try, and you can get a better garden. So I use a bunch of different methods, a bunch of different ways of doing it. Some, certain plants do better with certain kinds of weed barriers. And there's still plants that I don't use. Last year I did okra and I did not put any weed barriers down because okra grows so tall. It gets 7-8 foot tall sometimes. This year I'm probably gonna put a weed barrier because it's a pain in the butt. It's a headache to get in there and get the okra and a whole bunch of weeds. I don't want to get ticks and everything else while I'm getting okra. So use this stuff, any kind of weed barrier, wood chips. I mean, there's other stuff you can use too. Some people use straw and hay. I'm not a big fan of that. It usually seems like it goes to seed and I get a whole area full of more straw and hay than I do vegetables that I'm growing. But you can see here how well this is working. There's a few weeds here and there that I got to go through and pick throughout the onions. But these onions are coming up. I'll get you a better view of them. This here's the whole ideal for doing this. You see, you still something ripped that onion up and chewed it up. There's a few of them. So instead of pulling all the weeds, I just got to deal with this. And I might even put a little bit of something around this guy to protect him. But you'll still get weeds come up. It's just going to be in this little circle. And we got a little butane torch. We burn these little holes and then we plant our slips. And I'll have a little bit of video here I'll show you of us doing that, have the kids doing it. But yeah, definitely try this method. I highly recommend it. It's really easy. See how it works. Onions everywhere. So guys, we're gonna end up putting fabric all over the garden here to try and keep the weeds down. This is just the first, onions and potatoes kind of stuff goes out first. Still early spring. So try this method. Try putting some kind of weed barrier down. And comment below. Let me know how your weed barrier, if you're using a different kind of weed barrier besides, you know, pine needles or fabric or woven fabric or even wood chips. If you're using something else that you think works better, comment below. Let me know what you're using. Let me know how this method works for you guys. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. God bless you all.